Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio, for another U.S. Auto Association Championship national event. This one featuring, of course, the Mud Bog Racers and the Monster Trucks in a Mud Bog and Monster Truck Spectacular, all brought to you by today's Chevy Trucks. I'm Brett Kebner, along with Shelley Herman. We'll be bringing you the action with one of the single wildest events in the history of the association. Every single killer in the world is here, Shelley.
Tom Martin's here, Clay Lampley, everybody that you've come to know throughout the season, and they're out to see who's number one.
You know, almost half of our field of Supermodified mud racers are supercharged. This will be one of the most powerful events ever on a 90-foot bog, and by popular demand, even though the U.S. Auto Association was thinking of canceling the class, we've got the unlimited mud racers back.
And I'm glad to see them back, too, because it brings a whole different element to the sport, so you can really see how this mud can be used in a couple different ways.
That's true. It'll be a unique battle with two of the most popular classes in the sport. Plus, at the championship monster truck racing program, one of the biggest Chevrolets ever is here. Jerry Richmond and Barefoot.
Barefoot is here, and I was looking at the car a little bit earlier, and I think we got something special in store this evening.
Jerry will be out to win it all for the Chevy fans. And like I said, we'll be back with the start of Monster Truck Championship action here at Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio, brought to you by today's Chevy Trucks. We'll be back in a moment. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is Brett Kepner along with Shelley Herman with the U.S. Auto Association Monster Truck and Mud Bog Spectacular, all brought to you by today's Chevy Trucks. We're ready to kick things off in the Monster Truck segment of this particular event. And this is Jake Heinke, the Aces Eye Chevy El Camino. This is an elapsed time competition in Heinke's 16,000-pound supercharged small block Chevy-powered El Camino takes a hard landing after the first machine to hit the cars definitely gets airborne. Now he lines up a great turn and hits the second set of machines. Again, huge wheel stand into the air. He lands and crosses that orange pylon that you see that marks the finish line. Now we'll get an elapsed time from Heinke. It'll be a side-by-side battle between this Pennsylvania Chevy El Camino, the Aces Eye machine, and the machine you see now pulling to the starting line, Gary Bauer and the Lone Ranger. The quickest elapsed time between these two trucks in a special Ford versus Chevrolet grudge match will return to take on the king of the Chevrolet monster trucks, Jerry Richmond in Barefoot. Well, here on the slow-motion replay, Shelley, you can see Jake Heinke's qualifying run. And, man, he put that thing up, but you'll notice the rear wheels never left the ground. He was still able to apply power even with the front end up.
But look at that bounce that he took, too, when he was coming off.
Tell you, that is an amazing truck. Like I said, a supercharged small block Chevy engine. It's only 350 cubic inches. Tremendous piece of equipment. The elapsed time, 22.60 seconds. That's good enough to take the #1 spot, obviously. Bauer awaiting the start signal from event director Jim Harris at the U.S. Auto Association. Now there's the flag, and Bauer, that's a very, very slow start. He hits the first set of cars, gets a lot of air, but still doesn't seem to have the forward momentum he's going to need to even come close to threatening Jerry Janke. Bauer makes the U-turn in fine fashion, swings around, and now lines up with a hit on the last set of cars. 22.60 seconds the mark to beat, but he is taking his time, Shelley Herman.
He seems to be getting a slow start, but he's lining up the cars real well, too, so at least he won't be disqualified for any kind of technical reason.
But he'll still be way off the mark needed to beat Jake Heinke. He finally hits the finish line area. On Gary Bauer's qualifying run, the machine never did leave the starting line with any kind of serious horsepower. In fact, he took his time lining himself up on that first set of cars. He got the machine up in the air, but even so, it almost bogged the motor with the machine halfway up on the cars. When he came down, it was again with very, very little power in comparison to what the Lone Ranger supercharged Ford is capable of producing. His elapsed time, 25.2 seconds, 3 seconds off the pace he needed to move into the final round against Barefoot. But now, for a single run around these cars, let's see what Jerry Richmond and the king of the Chevrolets, Barefoot, can put down on this 185-foot course. The supercharged, fuel-injected, methanol-burning Chevrolet rat motor in this truck is one of the strongest in monster truck racing. As if you couldn't tell by that kind of tire-spinning start. Hitting the cars, tremendous airborne launch, clearing all 4 of the cars on the floor. Now making his swing around. The start, Shelley, wasn't nearly as good as it should have been.
It almost looked like a false start there. It seemed to start off a little slow, and then he built up the momentum.
I think the problem was that when he originally nailed the throttle, the tires were on the concrete floor here in the Riverfront Coliseum, still bouncing all over the place on the landing, and he will coast across. And I don't know if the last time will be on par with Jake Heinke, but remember, the winners will go side by side. Barefoot will be taking on Aces Eye in a side-by-side battle. Jerry Richmond leaves the starting line. You can see the tires spin, forcing him to get out of the throttle because of the concrete floor here at Riverfront Coliseum. But, man, when he hit those car Shellys, he was in the air.
He's coming down on those tires. You know, those tires only have 10 pounds of pressure in them each. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
It shows. And a 23.2-second elapsed time, interestingly, is slower than Jerry Janke. So that will set up the championship final between the Aces High Chevy El Camino of Jake Heinke and the infamous Barefoot Chevrolet with Jerry Richmond at the wheel. We'll be back with more championship action, including unlimited and super modified mud racers from Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio, in just a moment. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, to Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio, as the U.S. Hobbit Association Monster Truck and Mud Bog Spectacular continues, all brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet trucks. And on the starting line, we get ready to go into the unbelievable super modified category of the U.S. Hobbit Association's mud racing program. And the first man on the line, Shelley Herman, is without a doubt the young wolf of this battle.
Tom Mintz, and he's certainly one of the big competitors in this Tournament of Champions tonight.
He's been battling the defending world champion in this class, Tom Martin, with a nearly identical machine. And earlier we had a chance to talk to Tom about what it's like to battle the world champion in his first year of competition.
Back in the fall of 1988, the name Shake Me on the side of this 1932 Ford was a brand new one in U.S. Hobbit Association Super Modified Mud Racing. This young man, Tom Mintz, was virtually a rookie in this incredible 2,000 horsepower machine. And if you remember, back then, this machine instantly made a name for itself, as well as this driver's nickname, Hollywood, when it went upside down at the U.S. Hobbit Association National Championship event at Pittsburgh. And Tom, I know that incident has to still be going through your head, but there's no question that the U.S. Hobbit Association safety rules made this machine come back the following week.
Yes, it certainly did. Every time I get in the machine, I think of the wreck, but I always know that they have such good safety rules, and there's really no problem with safety.
Well, you were able to step right out of the car at that event, wave to the crowd. You really weren't even touched.
No, I didn't even have any bruises, bumps, or sores the next day.
Well, since then, this machine has gone on now into a battle for the World Championship points chase with Tom Martin, the current champion, and it's become pretty heated, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a few really fast cars here tonight, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, there's no question this will be a killer event. The question, I guess, most fans would want to know is, who do you shoot for when you come to these things? Is there any one guy that you'd really like to knock down?
Yeah, Tom Martin.
I guess along with everybody else, you want the world champ. The question is this machine going to continue getting more and more powerful? You're already running elapsed times now that are near records.
Yeah, we every week we work on speed. The more speed we can get out of it, the better we'll do.
This incredible 1,500 horsepower supercharged fuel-injected Chevrolet is one of the most powerful in the business. And Shelley Herman, with Tom Mintz being the first man on what is going to be an incredibly fast pit as far as the drivers are concerned, we may see a 1 second elapsed time for the 90-foot distance that we're dealing with. There's never been a driver under 2 seconds flat in 90 feet at the U.S. Hobbit Association mud.
Well, he's surely going to give the other guys a real race for their money. He's going to set a precedent here.
Unbelievable run, but something happens. A beautiful starting line launch, and that is terminal engine damage. On the replay, that launch was absolutely astounding. You couldn't ask for a more perfect run, but right there, the splash you see is because the motor went away and the machine lost its forward momentum. The front end actually came down into the mud, and there you see it's flat out of power. You can see the cylinders missing. That was something serious in the engine. What a disappointment, Shelley. The distance 85 feet 6 inches is not going to do him any good in this battle. Firing up and positioning himself on the starting line from Louisville, Kentucky is T. Ray in 1987 Jeep CJ7 funny car he calls TNT. And Shelley's using a very tried-and-true combination in this sport. The funny car style chassis, the fiberglass body, a big block fuel-injected methanol-burning Chevy engine, and nitrous oxide injection.
Well, this 28-year-old is one of the few drivers here who isn't a full-time mechanic. He is in the tree and landscaping business. He's only been racing for about 2 years now.
It's kind of unusual, wouldn't you think? A guy who makes his living making things look pretty, coming out in the mud and destroying everything, just tearing things up.
I guess mud is his life.
I'll tell you, it is an immaculate piece of equipment. No question, one of the prettiest trucks we've seen on the U.S. Hobbit Association National Event Tour this year. You can see the ground crew with the assistance of the gentleman in the white shirt, our National Event Director, Mr. Jim Harris from the U.S. Hobbit Association, hooking up the kill switch. Now, on this 90-foot distance track, the kill switch will automatically shut the engine down on these machines 1 foot past the finish line.
Just part of the built-in safety features the U.S. Hot Rod Association has.
Moving up on the starting line, let's see what happens. There is no elapsed time mark to beat, as we just saw one of the biggest upsets of the night. Now, a good run for T-Ray. Beautiful pass up and out of the pit, but completely over the disqualification cones. And that's going to bring up an interesting situation because the drivers are not allowed to pass the end of the pit On the replay, a beautiful starting line launch. Very little tire spin to speak of, the machine just blasting over the surface of the mud just like it's supposed to be done, Shelley.
And he's staying out of the few little ruts that were formed earlier when Shake Me went through there.
That's true, and at 2.63 seconds, locking up the brakes as soon as that engine is shut down. You can see him bouncing out of the pit. A wild shot there. The TNT Jeep of T-Ray takes the #1 spot. Well, Shelley, here is a piece of equipment that I think the fans have really gotten into. A brand new 1989 GMC S15 truck. This is Shane Bach from Mount Sterling, Kentucky. This thing is gorgeous.
Yes, it is.
And a transmission problem that sings the 476 cubic inch Chevy motor in this thing to the moon. The transmission or one of the transfer cases from the front or rear-wheel drive unit, it's hard to tell at this point, went away, and that motor just absolutely hit the moon. An easy 10,000 or 11,000 RPM zing. Looking at it again, the machine launched beautifully, but it was never really under power for any length of time at all. Look at the mud sailing. This thing was definitely hooked up, but at 17 feet 8 inches, Shane Bach is not going to stand much of a chance as a winner here tonight in Cincinnati. Well, Shelley, here's the guy they call Lamont. This is Ed Nokus out of Findlay, Ohio, and he considers this his hometown event each and every year. But we've talked a lot about this truck on ESPN's coverage of U.S. Harvard Association events before. It's an all-steel 1983 Chevy Blazer body. No fiberglass parts whatsoever. He used to own this thing as a bone stock Blazer. He completely redid it himself. It used to be a street truck, as a matter of fact. And along with that, it's got a small block, 355 cubic inch Chevy engine. That alone is unusual in this class. No supercharger, just fuel injection and nitrous oxide injection.
Well, he's rather proud of the fact that it is one of the smallest motors on the circuit, and he really thinks he can do a number to the competition out here.
Well, just a few weeks ago, Ed Nokus in this physical therapy Chevy Blazer ran 2.38 seconds, a record for steel body trucks in U.S. Harvard Association competition. We saw that on ESPN at the Pontiac Silverdome.
You know, it's kind of fun, too, as I was down in the pits talking to Ed, and I asked him if he repainted the car. He says, no, I just spent a lot of time cleaning it.
He does. It's a beautiful truck. Bringing the RPMs up. Hopefully, Ed can get away from his TV jinx here tonight. He always seems to have breakage problems when the ESPN cameras are rolling, and I don't believe it. Problems again. Now, the question is whether or not this pole, or mud run, I should say, will count. Because under U.S. Harvard Association rules, a driver can only go so far before he is committed to that run. And with the ground crew out there taking a measurement, it looks like Nokus is going to be committed to taking this measurement. Boy, just breakage problems left and right for the hitters here at Cincinnati. But coming up next, the defending world champion, U.S. Harvard Association hitter Tom Martin in the Mud Patrol 1932 Ford. And we'll be back to see the world champion action right after these messages. At Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio for the U.S. Harvard Association Monster Truck and Mud Bug Spectacular, all brought to you by today's Chevy Trucks, the heartbeat of America. On the starting line, we continue with the Supermodified mud class. Machines required to use street-legal tires, but with any engine modifications in any chassis. And this is the driver that everybody is here to beat. This is the defending U.S. Harvard Association World Champion of the Supermodified ranks, Tom Martin, a longtime campaigner out of the small town of Portage, Indiana, not too far from Chicago, Illinois, as a matter of fact, on the shores of Lake Michigan. The driver who won the World Championship in 1988 in the Van Stennis Auto Parts Mud Patrol 1932 Ford. A 540 cubic inch big block fuel-injected alcohol-burning Chevrolet with NOS nitrous oxide injection. A 1,400 horsepower machine that Shelley Herman, you may remember, was also the first man, or first vehicle, in the 1 second zone in U.S. Harvard Association racing.
Oh, boy, I remember that. We covered it here on ESPN.
That's right, and indeed you can bet Tom would love nothing more than to crack a number under 2 seconds flat here at Riverfront Coliseum, especially in light of the incredible competition he is facing here tonight. The ground crew making sure the kill switch lines that will shut the engine down right at the finish line are not tangled, and allowing Tom to back up to apparently renegotiate his starting line. Apparently he decided that he wanted to line up a little bit differently.
I don't blame him, because there's some ruts that are forming here that could really cost him some time.
Tom Martin, the defending U.S. Harvard Association World Champion, lines up. The mark to beat 2.88 seconds by Ed Nokus in the physical therapy Chevy. That is a number well within the range of the Mud Patrol 32 Ford. Clearing out the motor. Tom Martin notorious for the amount of time he takes on the starting line to build up engine temperature. Now he leaves the starting line. Tremendous run. Sideways he gets out of the throttle and still goes through an incredible pass. What a driving job. Shelley, that thing was headed almost out of the pit.
To borrow a phrase from you, unbelievable.
Just fantastic driving. Tremendous driving. And I'll tell you, even though he was out of the throttle at about the 65-foot mark of this 90-foot long pit, Tom may have still taken over the number 1 spot. On the replay, watch the starting line launch from this incredible machine. Look at that. Front end up. Just absolutely incredible. Already you can see him trying to correct for the machine pushing to the right-hand side, but now it hooks up and heads right for our cameraman, who indeed keeps focused on those front tires at least for a while. Of course, I'd be pretty thrilled in that position myself. Tom Martin just about mows down the camera, but still goes across. The elapsed time, 2.52 seconds. Shutting off 3/4 of the way down the track, it's still number 1 for the world champion. On the starting line right now, Mark Green from Waukegan, Illinois, in the Mudbuster Jeep CJ. This machine has always been a stormer. 468 cubic inch nitrous oxide injected Chevrolet. It's not supercharged, Shelley, but this machine has one of the best working suspensions in the sport of mud racing.
Well, as we've seen, you don't have to be supercharged to be competitive this evening.
Tremendous pass, and even though Mark Green heads for the outer boundary, he shuts it down well within reach of the safety area. He is not disqualified by crossing the cones. That number, Shelley, I'm almost afraid to think, might have beaten the world champ Tom Martin. On the slow motion launch, look at the front end of this thing come up. Like I said, one of the best working suspensions. The right front wheel not even on the ground for the first 30 feet. The Lake County four-wheel drive Mack Tools Dixon Automotive Jeep blasts across the finish line. You can see it drifting right there. Watch it throw him around in the cockpit. He actually hits his head against the roll cage a couple of times. The elapsed time, though, 2.39 seconds, puts him ahead of Tom Martin, the world champion, and the Mudbuster Chevy from Illinois is number 1. On the starting line, Mike Camella, the Chevy S10 called Bonkers. This guy comes from a racing family, Shelley. His uncle is Joe Camella, one of the nation's better-known supercharged alcohol funny car drivers on the nation's drag strips.
Well, he's keeping it all in the family then.
It's true, the similarities between mud racing and drag racing are pretty obvious, but they are still two completely different forms of motorsports. A fuel-injected, nitrous oxide-injected Chevrolet engine, of course. The GNR auto body machine moves up on the starting line. You'll notice a very high center of gravity on this truck as well.
I'm also noticing all 4 tires are the same.
Not bad at all. And a rough finish line. You saw the machine shimmying all over the place, which is interesting because there really aren't any deep ruts out there. But
I saw the driver shimming a lot, too.
He was working in the cockpit, no question about it. That run should have been around 2.7 or 2.8 seconds, which I would certainly think will put him in the top 3 right now. Looking at again, Cabello leaves the starting line with a little bit less horsepower than most of the machines we've seen. In fact, you can see even at this point, the truck is still down to the hubs in the mud. Now it finally comes up out of the mud, gets enough power. In fact, that may have been where he hit the nitrous oxide injection. As you can see him steering that truck, trying to keep it away from the left-hand side berm, looking at it from the driver's perspective. He makes it across the finish line. The elapsed time, 3.20 seconds. Will only be good right now for the number 4 position. Well, Shelley Herman, this is the machine that everybody has been waiting for. Each and every one of our USHRA Association mud racing ESPN shows incredible vehicle and an even more incredible driver. Mike Erderly, the Michigan Terror, and the machine called Mud Shark. And earlier we had a chance to talk to Mike about a brand new power plant this week.
Well, the most popular machine in the pit area has once again drawn a less than desirable starting position, but Mike Erderly and the Mud Shark has an extra trick up his sleeve tonight. Mike, a brand new power plant for the infamous Shark should put it right up there with him.
New 509 cubic inch engine. We've run it 2 weekends, and we just bumped the blower up a little more, so we'll have a little bit more horsepower on tap this evening.
Well, even with the extra overdrive in the blower, this is an interesting mud pit in itself. Randy Spraggins of Specialty Tracks has built a very high set of walls on either side of this thing. Is that going to be a problem?
Shouldn't be any problem at all. Generally, that helps out. It helps in the safety factor to keep the vehicles in the pit.
And if I do say so, the Mud Shark is not opposed to using those walls to keep in a straight line.
We'll do what we have to stay in there, generally.
And believe me, down when he does it.
Well, Erderly, the wild man himself, behind the wheel of, I guess we say it every time, the scariest mud racer there is, the 1964 Corvette called Mud Shark. If you've had a chance to witness this machine on ESPN's coverage of U.S. Auto Association racing in the past, you know what kind of handful this thing is just to keep within the boundary lines of a mud pit.
Well, he's certainly one of the crowd's favorite, and I'm sure there's sponsors that are clamoring to get him as to get their name on the side of his car. He really, really does come through.
One nice thing about being the sponsor of the Mud Shark is that if you put your name on both sides of the car, you get both sides on TV every single time. This machine is always nearly impossible for this man to control. But as we said before, Erdely has ice water in his hand. He doesn't let anything bother him. A 1,500 horsepower supercharged 510 cubic inch Chevy big block that is some 50 cubic inches larger than any motor he has ever had in this incredible vehicle. The mark to beat, 2.39 seconds. Mark Green in the Mudbuster Jeep is leading this show in a massive upset. Tom Martin, the world champ, is number 2. That leaves the door wide open. Run sideways again as Erdely puts down a typical Mud Shark pass, and that might certainly be the number 1 spot. A tremendous pass. It didn't start drifting until right at the finish line. Erdely stopped 3 feet from the yellow byline you see there that marks the disqualification zone if you don't stop in time.
He puts on quite a show, doesn't he? He's shaking a little bit, isn't he?
On the replay, instantly up on the tires. More horsepower than ever before. Look at the front end, not even on the ground. Erdely starts to steer it. Now the work comes in controlling this machine. The rear tires airborne as he crosses the finish line. 2.35 seconds. And that will be number 1 for Mike Erdely in the Mud Shark. That's what he was looking for. The rear-engine short wheelbase machine may look short from a dragster perspective, but as Melvin pointed out, a 140-inch wheelbase is actually longer than most of the vehicles running here. That, combined with a lightweight and a nitrous oxide-injected big block Chevrolet power plant, may give Melvin Brown his fastest ride ever.
That, coupled with the experience that he's had on the circuit before.
Well, you'll remember, Shelley, at Richmond, Virginia, a few months ago, we saw him run 1.95 seconds on an 80-foot pit. That was the quickest run in history for that distance. And this man would love to break the 2-second barrier here. The mark to beat, 2.35 seconds. Mike Erdely in the Mud Shark leads. But at this point, it seems like every one of the hitters is being knocked down a notch by the next man up. Inching forward to stage the machine up on the starting line. Waiting for the signal to plant his right foot. The front end does not work that much on this vehicle. You'll notice a very narrow tread width on the front end. The idea is for the rear engine configuration to plant those rear tires. And there it goes. Wheels up. Unbelievable ride. He stays in the pit, and Melvin Brown may have knocked the Mud Shark out of the number 1 spot.
Boy, and he did it in a car that seems like it's so low to the ground that it would sink right away. But you called it even before he took off. The back wheels did the whole thing for him.
Let's see how this thing works on the starting line. There you see it. The front wheels go up in the air immediately, but watch. When he hits the nitrous oxide, even with the machine drifting to the outer berm, the front end comes up, and he just keeps his foot planted. Blasting across the finish line, only a foot from being out of bounds, locking up the brakes. 2.28 seconds. Number 1 for the brand new Red Heat dragster of Melvin Brown. Well, with that kind of performance, Melvin Brown takes the lead, but still, some of the wildest machines you've ever seen in a mud pit are yet to come here at the U.S. Hobbit Association Mud Bog and Monster Truck Spectacular in Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll be back with more action in just a moment. The starting line is a piece of equipment we've seen before on ESPN, but it seems like every week, the U.S. Hobbit Association National Event, Mark Vatros gets this thing running even better. The Motorcraft Ford Thunderbird funny car. On the line, Mark Vatros is a heck of a driver in this machine using a supercharged, fuel-injected 560 cubic inch Ford wedge motor. And Shelley, he's got a place to practice on the weekdays.
Oh, yeah? Not on the city streets, I hope.
The best run we've ever seen for Mark Vatros. Indeed, that's the first time that machine has really had a chance to work. I'll tell you what was amazing is that vehicle was actually trying to pick the front end up before the finish line. He had more power than he's ever had with that supercharged Ford Thunderbird.
And he really just laid down a straight shot there.
On the slow motion replay, you can see that the machine actually got more traction with the front wheel drive than it did with the rear wheel drive on that launch. And after hooking a little bit to the left, there you see the front end come up. He kept the front end up a long, long way down this 90-foot course. There, the front end finally digs in. He actually shut down before the finish line. That's why you saw the front end dive. 2.72 seconds indicates that he shut it off a little early, but it's good for the number 5 spot. On the starting line, a vehicle that should be pretty impressive this time around. We've seen it at a few other events with the U.S. Hobbit Association National Event Trail, but never with a supercharged power plant. This is Jeff Sturkin of the machine that he and Johnny Holstein own, called the Ground Zero. From Holland, Michigan, believe it or not, a supercharged small block Chevrolet power plant in a 1983 Chevy S10 pickup. The Ground Zero machine uses, of all things, a 2-speed power glide transmission. Shelley, when you start putting a 2-speed automatic up against a 1,400 horsepower blown small block, you're starting to stress that transmission to its absolute limits.
Yeah, but we've seen here tonight, too, that the motor is one thing, but it's also the experience of the driver. This young man has 2 years' experience behind him. We'll see if that'll help him pull it out. And we also see that the front tires are a bit different than the back.
Tremendous blast. And if he had not shut that motor down at about the 75-foot marker, you can bet Jeff Sturkin in the Ground Zero Chevrolet would have taken the #1 spot. As it is now, that run may have been good for one of the top 3 possessions, but Shelley, I would be surprised if it was quicker than the 2.28-second run by Melvin Brown that's leading this field. Off the starting line, Sturkin was definitely on a pass. Now, once again, this machine started hooking almost immediately to the right. Then, when he really got in the motor, the front wheels came up. Look at this thing sideways all the way down the track. No wonder he shut the engine off early. Never had a straight line at all until he got out of the throttle. The elapsed time, 2.67 seconds. Good enough right now for 5th. It would have been a lot better if he could have kept it straight and in the throttle. So Shelley on the line, another one of the new breed of U.S. Hobbit Association Championship mud racers. You can only see this kind of diversity. Supercharged funny cars, the late model machines, the early bodied entries at U.S. Hobbit Association races. This is Ron Smith, another Michigan racer with the 1948 Fiat Topolino called Gold Fever. The supercharged, fuel-injected 1,500 horsepower Chevrolet, pulling for 90 cubic inches. Indeed, an amazing piece of equipment. We had a chance to see the very first mud racing event of the year, a regional program in Salem, Virginia. The machine did amazingly well. The last time we saw it was at Oklahoma City at the U.S. Hobbit Association National Event Trail, where it was unfortunately disqualified for going beyond the stopping boundaries down there past the shutdown area.
That was a real disappointment for him, and we'll see that if he's learned his lesson this evening.
This is an extremely difficult machine to control. Very short wheelbase, a lightweight 22. I don't believe my eyes. Completely out of the pit and out of the building. It's a disqualification, but I guarantee that the elapsed time will be one of the most incredible in the history of a 90-foot pit.
The fans are just going crazy, too.
That was an absolute perfect run. It was so perfect that Ron Smith could not shut the machine down in time. And because of safety regulations of which the U.S. Hobbit Association places the utmost importance, he will be disqualified. But the elapsed time has got to be incredible. Look at this replay. Watch this run. Completely straight, up on the berm, a little bit at half track. The rear wheels off the ground. He got out of the throttle before the finish line. 2.04 seconds. The second quickest run in the history of a 90-foot pit. Airborne out of the track. It's a disqualification, but man, what a ride.
It's hard to stop when your wheels ain't on the ground. Wow.
Yeah, we had a chance to look at this machine in the pits before the event, but it was just a battle getting through the crowd of people who were surrounding it, checking it out. This is the brand new 1989 Chevy Corvette of the Pork Brothers, the infamous Pork Brothers, who have run several trucks in this class. The Pork Brothers Express. Darren Ovington out of Mount Sterling, Kentucky, who campaigns not only in this class, but also has a machine that runs in the Unlimited division that we'll be seeing later on. This is the first time ever in the mud for this immaculate piece of equipment. A fuel-injected, methanol-burning 572 cubic inch Chevy motor, one of the largest cubic inch displacement power plants here tonight. 2,600 pounds, which is kind of heavy in this category. Most of the stronger machines are down around 2,200 and 2,300 pounds, but still an amazing piece of equipment. $65,000 in construction costs. And problems off the starting line. He makes it through the pit, but the machine never had the power that it needed to get that starting line launched that has changed from these killers running below 2-second zone. That's a tough break, but still an immaculate piece of equipment, Shelley.
I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of this car in the future.
I have a feeling the fans are going to demand it. Looking at it again, yeah, the starting line never, ever offered the traction that they were looking for, and it almost looked like they weren't getting the power to the front wheels. Maybe something wrong with one of the transfer cases or differentials. Once he got it about half track, he got the power. There it comes back up on top of the mud, and that's the idea here in the super modified class. You want to go over the mud, not through it. The elapsed time, 3.20 seconds for the Fork Brothers Express Corvette on its maiden voyage. The action just keeps getting wilder. The mark to be now 2.28 seconds, but we'll be back with even faster machines in Cincinnati, Ohio in just a moment with more U.S. Helmet Association Mud Racing action. We're back at Cincinnati, Ohio's Riverfront Coliseum with the U.S. Helmet Association Championship event for mud racers and monster truck campaigners. And indeed, it's all brought to you by Chevrolet Trucks, the heartbeat of America. And Shelley, here is a brand new piece of equipment that everybody is waiting to see. How about this thing, Shelley? A 58 Chevy Corvette, first time with a supercharger at U.S. Helmet Association competition. A lot of people think this thing is going to be a handful.
This has been quite an exciting night for Chevy. I'm real interested to see how this debut car does.
On the starting line, hooked and ready. New driver of the U.S. Helmet Association National Event Tour, Steve DeLue from Holling, Michigan. Wants to put down a number with the brand new supercharger. It's not going to be enough to take the number one spot. He is within inches of the disqualification mark. But again, the starting line may be getting a little bit sloppy. And in that situation, Shelley, these guys have got to start using their head as to where they line up. Let's see on the replay if the tire spin was as bad as it first appeared to be. You bet. Definitely spinning the tires, but there, once he gets traction, the machine is up on top of the mud. In fact, you can see him carrying the left front wheel. Man, is he carrying the left front wheel. Lots of horsepower for Steve DeLue. The elapsed time, 2.60 seconds. Considering the tire spin, that is tremendous. In fact, that'll be good for the number 5 spot right now. What a piece of equipment. This is the incredible time traveler of Bud Thompson from Niles, Michigan, a 1955 Ford Thunderbird. 480 cubic inches of nitrous oxide injected Chevrolet power plant. Beautiful piece of equipment. Thompson's machine, without being supercharged, may suffer a disadvantage by drawing this late of a starting number. The starting line is definitely a little bit messy, and like I said, it's going to take more brains than sheer horsepower to get off this starting line in good fashion. When you get wet mud up on the line after some machines have already run down this pit, it's going to give you tire spin as soon as the green flag drops. Let's see if Bud Thompson can make the best of the situation, because you can get down this pit. It's just a matter of knowing how to do it.
And what a beautiful vintage car to do it in.
Good starting line launch. Excellent run. An amazing pass. And sideways right at the finish line. Stopping markers. Remember, down past the shutdown area, there are boundary markers that indicate a disqualification. You can see the yellow banner right in front of the car. If he had gone another 3 feet, Shelley, it would have been a disqualification. A heck of a job stopping this car.
So he doesn't want to tie that yellow ribbon around his car.
That is an automatic out in this business. You can see the ground crew disconnecting the kill switch. He made a good pass. Like I said, you can get down a pit even with a messy starting line. You just have to know how to do it. You have to know where to line up, when to apply power, how to drive it. Bud Thompson proves that he knows just exactly what to do. On the replay, instantly up on the tires. Thompson getting off the line perfectly, sticking with it. The machine did bounce around a little bit. As a matter of fact, you can see him trying to steer it straight when it was sideways by the finish line. The elapsed time, 2.57 seconds. A tremendous effort. That'll put him number 5. The fans are ready for the next machine to hook up on the starting line here at Riverfront Coliseum at the U.S. Helmet Association Championship Mud Racing Spectacular. And on the line is the winningest mud racer in U.S. Helmet Association history. This is Independence, Missouri's own Clay Langley. Right, a good run, airborne across the finish line. He'll drive it out of the pit under his own power. Shelley, that machine uses a supercharged small block Chevy engine, a 1932 Austin Phantom Roadster, the winningest driver of all time in this class. A 4-time U.S. Helmet Association World Champion. On the replay, Clay Langley's supercharged small block Phantom Roadster didn't get exactly the launch he was looking for. In fact, you can see it shimmy over to the right-hand side of the track there very quickly. Now, watch Clay start working that steering wheel in the cockpit, trying to keep that machine off the berm on the right-hand side. At this point, he shuts her down, comes airborne across the finish line. The elapsed time, 2.93 seconds. That, at this point, won't even be good for one of the top 5 spots. Number 7. the Iski Camp Nitro Express. Alan Ayers out of New Albany, Indiana, a brand new competitor in the U.S. Hobbit Association National Event Trail Shelley with a 69 GCJ called Poco Loco. I'll tell you, he was working that steering wheel in that machine, and I'll tell you, that is also a pretty impressive run. It uses nitrous oxide injection, but this is a solid 2,950-pound Jeep. It's almost stock weight, and uses, of all things, a 440 cubic inch Dodge motor on board. Not bad for the newcomer. The machine leaves the starting line without as much power as many of the vehicles we've seen, but like I said, Alan Ayers is in his first ever U.S. Hobbit Association event. I think was just concentrating on making it through this difficult 90-footer. Remember, we're talking about 36 inches of mud. He bounces it off the berm with the nitrous-injected Dodge Jeep CJ and goes across the finish line at 4.67 seconds. So in the super modified category, the machines that are required to use street-legal tires, you can use any engine modification or body and chassis combination. The #1 spot goes to the brand-new machine of Melvin Brown, the Red Heat short wheelbase rear-engine dragster at 2.28 seconds. Its first event and its first victory. #2, the killer Mike Erderly, the incredible Mud Shark, co-owned with Mike Johns out of Michigan. The Corvette ran 2.35 seconds for #2. The third spot, how about Mark Green's Mudbuster Jeep? That incredibly well-suspended Jeep CJ ran 2.39 seconds for the #3 spot, followed by, surprisingly, the defending world champion, Tom Martin's Mud Patrol 32 Ford, finishing #4 at 2.52 seconds. And at the #5 spot, what a debut for that machine. Bud Thompson's Time Traveler 1955 Ford Thunderbird with Chevy power at 2.57 seconds. We'll be back with more championship action. Coming up, the return of the unlimited mud racing category for the first time in several months at U.S. Hobbit Association events. We'll be back at Riverfront Coliseum for more action from the Chevrolet-sponsored U.S. Hobbit Association Spectacular in just a moment. We're back at the U.S. Hobbit Association Championship Mud Racing and Monster Truck Spectacular in Cincinnati, Ohio, all brought to you by the Heartbeat of America, today's Chevy trucks. And here in the unlimited mud racing class in this 90-foot-long pit is Stanley Trimble from Mount Sterling, Kentucky, the machine he calls the Mud Rat, Shelley.
And he's got his work cut out for him.
Sinking straight down to the bottom of the pit in this Jeep CJ, but makes it out of the pit under his own power, the big block Chevrolet-powered machine using a fuel-injected methanol-burning power plant. Again, you can see this machine sink before it starts to move forward. But that's the mark of an unlimited class machine. The front end comes up while the rear end is still buried in 36 inches of mud. Trimble stays with the throttle, though, and blasts straight and true across the finish line. The elapsed time, 3.22 seconds. This is J.R. Fawns from Owensville, Kentucky, and Alfred Fawn doing the driving, as a matter of fact, of the Kentucky-based machine. Obviously a mud-only machine, purpose-built for the unlimited category called Long Shot, utilizing a fuel-injected 482 cubic inch Chevrolet rat motor. Remember that here in the unlimited category class, these machines won't necessarily skim over the mud. In fact, the Kentucky driver with the Long Shot machine, the rear tires dug down about 30 inches into that pit. Yet these machines have such incredible power. Indeed, you'll very seldom see them get stuck. But they don't skim across the top of the mud like the Super Modifieds do, Shelley.
It's a whole different breed of machine.
On the replay, watch the rear wheels of this machine. Sinking as he goes. But it's the power in these incredibly heavy yet incredibly strong running machines that will motivate it right through the mud regardless of the depth. 30 inches of mud at this point is not even close to enough to slow this machine down at 3.40 seconds. Bill Lucas, the Owensville, Kentucky 31-year-old, clears out the motor and gets ready for his shot. The mark to beat, 2.97 seconds. Local favorite Chuck Stone leads the field. Good run. Nice, straight and true blast, but Shelley, you saw him get caught in those ruts down there at the finish line from the Long Shot machine that almost sent him into the berm. On the slow motion replay, this machine again sinks to the bottom of the pit almost immediately off the starting line. But now you see it level out, and he just applies throttle. Bill Lucas starts to motor on through the mud, dangerously close to that right-hand side berm, but still pretty straight and true run. The elapsed time, 3.33 seconds. Well, Shelley, one of the prettiest machines we've seen in the unlimited category since the class really was designed. This is the Mud Mouse of Tim Fawns from Owensville, Kentucky, no doubt related to J.R. Fawns that we saw earlier in the Long Shot. Moves it up to the starting line. Beautiful piece of equipment. The green flag comes out. pass. And again, because of the heavy weight of this machine, it sank before it went forward. And that means the vehicle was plowing through the mud instead of skimming over it. That's why the Unlimited class is not as quick last time as the Super Modified. But it's actually, to pay attention, a much more impressive display of power when these machines drive through the mud instead of over it. On the replay, watch the rear end of the machine sink right off the starting line. There it goes. But down, as I said, the weight of these machines will put them down to the bottom of the pit. But still a straight and true pass for the 24-year-old newcomer, the U.S. Off-Road Association Racing. The 48 Fiat Topolino goes through the 90-foot-long mud pit at 3.35 seconds, making it the number 3 machine right now. Good run for Tim Fawns and the Mud Mouse, but believe me, the Unlimited class action will get even wilder when we return to Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio to continue the Chevrolet-sponsored U.S. Off-Road Association Mud Racing at Monster Truck Spectacular. We're back at Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio for more action at the U.S. Off-Road Association Monster Truck and Mud Bog Spectacular, all brought to you by the Heartbeat of America, Chevrolet Trucks. The first man up is indeed the old man of mud racing in this part of the country, Cincinnati's own Chuck Stone. You might remember him from years and years ago, the old Rolling Stone trucks. Now the 44-year-old campaigning this beautiful 1987 Jeep CJ called a Razzmatazz, an alcohol-injected big block Chevrolet 468 cubic inch motor. And indeed, this is the Unlimited class, a class that a lot of people thought the U.S. Off-Road Association was going to cancel, but it is back after a 6-month hiatus and kicking things off here at Cincinnati with the first category of competition for the Unlimited machines in quite a while. On the starting line, Chuck Stone in the Razzmatazz Jeep, ready. A tremendous launch, unbelievable wheel stand. He stays in the throttle. What a ride for Chuck Stone.
And what a time for him to do it, too. His whole family's here tonight since he is a local boy.
Tremendous run, unbelievably spectacular for Unlimited tractor-tired machines. That is unusual for those machines to pull the front end up like that. The elapsed time for Chuck Stone, 2.97 seconds. And as the first man out here in the Unlimited category, that will obviously stand as number 1. Well, the final machine up in the Unlimited mud racing category. Here are the grand return for this category to U.S. Off-Road Association's competition. This is the Blue Max of Melvin Brown. Now, a lot of our regular ESPN viewers probably know this is one of the quickest and fastest super modified class machines. Originally campaigned by Melvin Brown, he still owns it. It has Paul Thomas behind the wheel tonight. The Ewington, Ohio team has put tractor tires, rice and cane tires actually, on the super modified Blue Max and are going to try and input this night for Sockside Chevy powered machine into the 2-second zone. The last man with a chance to knock Chuck Stone in the Razzmatazz Jeep out of a number 1 spot and a victory here in front of Chuck's hometown crowd, Shelley.
Well, there's some serious ruts the Blue Max has got to get through, too, but this is all Chevy power, so this machine just...
created a problem. He called that one dead on, Shelley. Easily, the ruts gave Paul Thomas more of a ride than he ever bargained for. In fact, that smoke that you see coming out from underneath the cowling isn't just steam off the exhaust headers. That's motor problems big time. But that means there's a very happy man back at the pits. Chuck Stone of the Razzmatazz Jeep, the man who has dominated this category for so many years, wins the Unlimited class's return to U.S. Off-Road Association competition in front of his hometown crowd. Here on the replay, let's see if we can spot the problem for Paul Thomas in Melvin Brown's Blue Max. It looked like it was receiving power to all 4 wheels all the way down. It may have simply been a power plant problem, as the machine never had the horsepower that it needed to blast through those ruts that Shelley pointed out. We're going to slow him down anyway. The elapsed time, 3.80 seconds, will only put Paul Thomas in the number 6 spot. As we pointed out, Chuck Stone in the Razzmatazz Jeep wins it in front of his hometown fans. So the final standings of the Unlimited tractor-tired mud racing machine, Chuck Stone, the Cincinnati veteran in the Razzmatazz Jeep, leads the field with the only 2-second elapsed time and takes first place at 2.97 seconds. Number 2 went to the Mud Rat, the machine driven by Stanley Trimble from Mount Sterling, Kentucky, at 3.22 seconds. Number 3, the Homebrew of Bill Lucas from Owingsville, Kentucky, at 3.33 seconds. Number 4, the Mud Mouse Fiat Topolino at 3.35. Tim Fawns behind the wheel. And number 5, the Long Shot Machine of J.R. Fawns. And the family finishes 4-5 with a best of 3.40 seconds in the number 5 spot. Tremendous amount of action in the Unlimited and Super Modified mud racing category, but coming up, the finale that everybody's been waiting for, the Battle of the Monster Trucks Championship Dash. In the near lane, Jake Heinke from Pennsylvania, the world's only Chevy El Camino monster truck, with, of all things, a supercharged small block Chevrolet engine. Ran the quickest elapsed time in the qualifying round, and Shelley Herman, he's up against one of the toughest trucks ever built.
The big guns of Barefoot. It's nice to see a Chevy off here, isn't it?
Indeed, it will be an interesting battle. The supercharged fuel-injected methanol-burning big block Chevy engine in the new 89 Chevy truck of Jerry Richmond Barefoot against this machine. Incredible Aces High Chevy El Camino, a machine that Jake Heinrich, by the way, built himself. Tremendous piece of equipment. Both show quality. Off the starting line, Richmond and Barefoot has the advantage, but here comes Jake Heinke, and that is a side-by-side near-dead heat. We'll have to watch the replay on that one to even begin to tell a winner, Shelley.
That was too close to call.
Well, on the replay here in the final round, you can see the tire spin on the concrete floor that caused Richmond to get in and out of the throttle, but now on the car hit way up in the air. Full throttle trying to get ahead of Aces High, and from our event director, Jim Harris, we get the word that the winner is indeed Jerry Richmond in Barefoot by a matter of inches. On the replay from Jake Heinke's angle, you can see a tremendous starting line launch that gave him what little advantage he had, completely airborne over all the cars, but it was just a matter of inches behind Barefoot, the winner. Now, interestingly, we're receiving word also from our event director, Jim Harris, that Gary Bauer with the Lone Ranger is trying to challenge Jerry Richmond in Barefoot to a grudge match. Even though the final has already been determined, Barefoot has beaten Aces High, but Bauer, the slowest qualifier in the first round, says he wants a shot at Barefoot. And now our event director, Jim Harris, says, okay, bring it out. So we're going to see Barefoot versus Lone Ranger in a Ford versus Chevy showdown that we really didn't even expect to see, Shelley. Off the starting line. First man into the car is Jerry Richmond, and he just barely noses out Gary Bauer at the finish line. About 5 feet difference between those two machines, Shelley.
And he was flying through the air. That's the 5 feet that made the difference.
It's about the truth. He hit the cars not only first, but with a lot more power than Gary Bauer ever did with the Lone Ranger. Bauer just doesn't seem to have the momentum he normally does here tonight with the Lone Ranger. Back at Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio, with more from the U.S. Automobile Association Monster Truck and Mud Box. Well, another tremendous U.S. Automobile Association Monster Truck and Mud Box Spectacular. This one brought to you by the Heartbeat of America Chevy Trucks. And I got to tell you, Shelley, with Melvin Brown winning that Supermodified category with that short wheelbase dragster, that may be a coming trend.
Well, it was so interesting tonight to see the fact that either people couldn't get out of the starting block or they just blew everybody away. There was really no in-between.
That's true, and we saw some pretty tremendous upsets with Tom Martin and the Mud Patrol finishing well down the back. But in the Monster Truck category, the guy they said was going to win it came through with flying colors.
It was a Chevy night all around. Barefoot proved to be the big winner, but had some real close competition.
You have to admit, Jake Heinke in the Aces High El Camino was impressive with the quickest time of the night. And Chuck Stone in the Unlimited Mud Racing category coming through in front of the one crowd that he wanted to win in front of most.
Oh, his whole family was here, and he said his wife is his sponsor, so he won for his sponsor tonight.
A heck of a job. But I'll tell you, there's going to be more U.S. Automobile Association Championship action coming your way, and we hope you join us at the next U.S. Automobile Association Championship Mud Racing and Monster Truck Spectacular. On behalf of myself, Brett Kepner, and Shelley Urban, thanks for being with us. We'll see you soon at the next U.S. Automobile Association event.